Hi, today we'll be discussing on GMC registration, the process, requirements, time frame, and the hurdles that you will face. First, coming into the application for the GMC registration, we have to go into GMC online site and make an account. So first, when we try to make an account, it will first get logged initially, and there will be a number provided in which we'll have to call and give the name, date of birth, and then the account gets unfreezed. We have to go to the registration and licensing section, and there if you'll see before you apply section. There are many things that we need to know before applying for the registration, and this is explained clearly here. So kindly go through the before you apply section in the registration and licensing part. The registration that we apply is full registration with license to practice, and this applies to anyone who has cleared PLAB or coming through the Royal College membership pathway or through any sponsorship route, that is like MTI routes. So for applying, before we could make a GMC account, they'll check for eligibility and they'll ask to complete a questionnaire. So there, these are the things that I had applied and I have selected, but in your case you will have to do your own research and select the appropriate section according to your pathway. So I have selected for apply for registration with license to practice, as I came through the Royal College membership route. Then the next question was whether I am a Swiss applicant or not. So I selected no. Uh, your primary medical qualification, whether it is UK or EU qualification or none of the above. I selected none of the above. Then completed internship, yes, and where it was, whether in the UK or elsewhere. So in my case it was elsewhere. And evidence that you can provide, so it can be either PLAB or sponsorship route or PG qualification. So in case of Royal College membership, you'll have to select the PG qualification. There are many other options as well, but I'm just showing you these three because these are the most common routes, either PLAB or MTI sponsorship route or the RCM Royal College membership routes. Then they'll show that I'm ready to apply. So if you don't have a GMC account, we'll have to set up an account, then they'll email a code, and then the GMC ID is created. Using the GMC login ID, we have to log in, and there we'll see my registration and my application section. Select my application, and here they'll ask whether we have right to EC. We have to select no. Again, select route, whether it is specialist or GP. So we are not in the specialist pathway or GP pathway, so we have to select no. And then the kind of application. So in my case, it was IMG3 because of it was the Royal College membership route. If it is a sponsorship route, it will be IMG4 application, and if it is PLAB, it is IMG2. And then they'll ask for our EPIC ID that we have to give the details. So next they ask for the internship details. In my case, as my internship was before my graduation, I have selected pre-graduate, but I have seen many people selecting postgraduate as well, depending on their circumstances. So we have to do your own research. Anyway, I have got the registration based on these details. So I think it was a correct option to select. They have to know the start and end date as well here. So some people give the start and end date of internship just like that, and then give the country and hospital, but I have given it specialty wise, so you can do it either ways. Either you can just directly give your start and end date of internship, or subject wise, that is like ENT, ortho, surgery, whatever rotation you had, you have to separately give the start and end date of that rotation. Then comes some personal details that we can fill in easily. Then they'll ask for work experience in the last 5 years. So we have to mention each and every experience that we had in the last 5 years, whether it is just our medical, whether it was our MBBS period, whether it was our internship period, or if we were working or if we were not working, if we were taking a gap, maternity leave or childcare, or we were traveling or anything. If you have a gap, just explain whatever reason you have taken a gap. Some people, for marriage purposes and all, they take a gap in between, and if you can just give it clearly and without making up for any false um, experience in this place, that would be the best thing. So do not make up for any experience. It is always better to give whatever was your experience in the last 5 years. Then coming to the registration and licensing history, we have to mention all the medical councils to which we have been registered in the last 5 years. So I think it is mainly in a case of people who are from India, because there we have different state registration as well as a national registration. So most of the students will be having different state registrations. Like in my case, I had moved through 3 different states and I had 3 different registrations, so I had to mention all those to them. But in most of the countries, they'll only have one medical registration, so in that case it won't be so confusing. Then they will ask for the fitness to practice and declaration that we have to give, and then is the payment for the application. So by completing these details, our application process is done. So once we have done the application, within few days we'll get an email in our email from the GMC asking for some documents. So they'll ask for scanned copy of every documents listed below, like the scanned copy of passport, the primary medical qualification, and this certificate should confirm the date that you have passed the exam and must meet the primary medical qualification criteria of GMC, and it should be ECFMG verified as well. So I'll make another video on ECFMG or EPIC verification if you don't know about it. But remember that before applying for GMC registration, we need our primary medical qualification or the certificate of our degree to be EPIC or ECFMG verified. Then they'll ask for the good standing certificates from all the medical regulatory authorities in which we were registered within the last 5 years. So as I said before, it's mainly in the case of students coming from India who have different state registrations, will have to get good standing from all those medical authorities. In my case, I had to get it from 3 different medical authorities, and this certificate are valid only for 3 months. So make sure that this is the last thing that you will get, because if you get it too early, then it will be expired by the time we apply for GMC. So just before applying for GMC registration, you will have to get these good standing certificates so that the validity is not expired. The next thing that they require is the evidence of your knowledge of English. So in my case, it was OET. So if it is OET, you have to make sure that you have selected GMC as your recognizing organization in the My OET portal. So only if you give GMC as your recognizing organization, they will send the certificate directly to the GMC for verification. So make sure that you do that. I'll make a separate video on OET or IELTS, what is better, but I always prefer OET because it is comparatively easier for medical graduates, and it is medical related, so it's easier for us rather than IELTS, and higher chance of passing is also there, even though it is a bit costly exam. Next, they'll ask for post-graduation qualification certificate, and it must be an acceptable postgraduate qualification like MRCS. So whoever comes through the Royal College membership, they have an accepted postgraduate qualification, and we have to remember that it should be awarded within the last 3 years of GMC registration date. And if the certificate is not available by the time you apply, so like if we pass the MRCS and we have all the required documents for GMC registration. We'll directly apply the GMC registration. But in that case, what happens is we don't have the certificate with us. So that is what happened with me as well. So what we did was we emailed the Royal College, and they have given us a letter stating that we have already passed these exams and we have been awarded this degree. So that letter we then got ECFMG verified, and then that certificate we have sent it to the Royal College. So even if it is a letter from the Royal College, that also needs to be verified before we give it as a proof to the GMC. Next, they ask for employer reference. It's only for any period of non-medical work or any period of medical work without registration within the last 5 years. The employers will need to complete an employer reference form in full in this case. So I also needed it. That is called a Gen 1 form. I needed it because, as I said, I had multiple state registration, and when I had the transition period from one state to the other, obviously we don't have the next state registration in hand. So it takes few months for us to get the registration done, and in that period, as we have worked without a registration, we need our employer to declare that we have worked under them, and we already had another state registration and it was allowed in India, like that. So it may be because of the registration issue or any other issue, they'll need a employer reference in that case, and you'll have to fill the form and send it to GMC. Another thing is evidence of internship or internship completion certificate. So I had a CRRI certificate with me, stating all the rotations that I had during my internship, the start and end date, as a certificate form. So if you have something like that, you can give it as an evidence of internship. And translations, if your certificates are not in English, then you'll need translations of every document that you have provided that is not in English, and the translation must have the name and contact details of the translator as well. We have to again give details of the breaks in the medical practice that we had in the last 5 years, like maternity leave, unemployment, study leave, career breaks, vacation, anything that we had should be clearly stated. So kindly be very genuine in this case. We don't need to be afraid in order to give the proper details. Even if you were not working during the last 5 years, you should clearly state it rather than making up for any false experience. And next is declaring your fitness to practice. There is no serious illness or declaration that you are healthy. Will there be any restriction on where we can work? So yes, initially only in an approved practice setting until we have completed our first revalidation. So we have to select yes in that case. How to send the documents? So we have to email it to this email ID, that is imggmcuk.org, and we have to include the name and the GMC number clearly in the email. The documents should be as one PDF attachment or as a zip file in the same order as we have discussed above, and the maximum file size should be. So how can we speed up the process? We have to keep all the required documents ready, send it within 28 days of the reply email that you get after completing the application. Don't wait for 28 days actually, do it as soon as you can, and send all the documents asked in the correct order and format, and do not email any documents that were not requested. And if any documents are missing, mention it in the email with the reason for it. And do not post the IELTS or OET certificates to the GMC. Identity check in the UK. So it's usually done in London or Manchester within 3 months of the GMC approval. And I was granted registration without an ID check because of the COVID circumstances, but nowadays they have restarted the identity check. So anyone who gets the registration needs to come within 3 months of their registration to London or Manchester for their identity check. The cost of the GMC application is 408 GBP. Things to note about GMC. They usually respond very well to emails, but if you need an urgent consultation, you can always contact them via phone as well, and they respond to it. If all the documents required were ready, then it can be as quick as 5 days for registration, or else it may take months. So I know one of my friend who had all the documents required. She submitted it and she got registration within 5 days. In my case, it took nearly 1 month. That's because initially I didn't have one of my good standing certificates from one of the medical councils that I have registered with. And then the next thing was they needed a Gen 1 form because I had worked without a registration for the initial 1 month during my uh, medical college time. So because of these two reasons, my application took nearly 1 month. And one more thing that you have to understand is they usually take 5 days to respond if there is any correction or anything else required. So once GMC response gives a response, we'll have to wait for another 5 days for them to reply to it. So for example, if they ask you to give the certificate or any proof, even if you send them back the proof the next day, they won't reply to you till the next 5 days. They'll only reply to you in around 5 or 6 days. So you have to wait patiently, and then again you will have to wait for next 5 days for the next update from them. So they usually take around 5 days to respond each time. And the mails will be coming from this email ID that I've mentioned here. So keep a check on your mail all the time if you are getting any mails from this ID. The GMC contact details I have mentioned here, the phone number to contact from the UK as well as outside the UK, but you can get all the details and the address as well updated in the GMC online site. So I have tried to detail all the GM's requirements, what we need to do in order to speed up our process and everything related to the GMC registration in this presentation. I hope this helps you. If there are any further queries, please comment in the video and then I'll reply to you. Thank you.